Okay, Hugh. James Parker. Um, okay, thanks for signing up for my academy. Thanks for sending me your swing in. We got there in the end. And I just pulled it up and gone through it a few times, and there's a lot of good stuff going on, isn't there? I mean, very good setup, nice backswing. Um, in the sense that this is straightening up a little bit. Left leg's flexing a little bit, so you got that straightening and flexing. So your right hip goes a little bit higher than your left. You could maybe extend a little bit more, right, to get your hands a little bit further back up here, right? Maybe get a slightly longer spot, but I like the fact that it's nice and nice and compact there. Right, so you're in a nice angles going back, good position at the top with your arms. What I like about, and you can tell you're a good player, you're very connected under each armpit here, right? As if you've got a T-peg underneath each armpit, or you've got an old glove under each armpit. That's very good. Nice transition. Right, nice transition. Right, you drop the club down a little bit shallower. Kind of get that right arm a little bit stuck, don't you? I mean, as you're coming down into P6 here, you can see how that right elbow is a little bit stuck right behind your right hip. And then if we look at it from this sort of angle, that would explain how for me here, when you look at the pros, their hands are more sort of over their right thigh at this point, right? So we could do with getting your arms down a little bit faster, right? You could definitely work on getting your arms and hands down a little bit faster, down to impact. But saying that, impact's pretty good there, right? Cleared your hips out the way, body's turned out the way, you're exiting left with your hands and the club, which is very good. Shaft's coming out underneath your left shoulder, which is great. And then you finish in a nice position. Nice position with the left arm at 90 degrees. That's your finish position. Right, but what strikes me is the amount of hand roll you've got through impact or just post impact there. You can see how that right hand's already turned over your left one, right? If we look from this angle, then it's difficult to tell because of the club face. But I looked at the one your swing that you sent me the other day as well, and in this position, your club face. I think the one you sent me the other day was pretty kind of, the leading edge was going up here, but it wouldn't take much for that club face to flip over a little bit, especially looking at how that right hand overtakes your left one a little bit too early there. So I'm guessing with the level that you're at, close to a scratch, and the speed that you're swinging it at, I'm guessing that your miss is a shot which turns over too much, and occasionally you suffer from a hook. Okay, so on that assumption, we need to build a swing which has got the face a little bit more sort of passive through impact, and you can see there that the face has turned over a little bit there, right? So we need to then work on the movement pattern, which is going to keep your hands a little bit more passive. And the two things which really stand out to me. Let me pull up a model here. Let me pull up a pro. someone like Sean Hare, that might be a good one. And we'll do this. So I want to put a line through his belt. We'll put a line through your belt. We'll put a line by your left ear. Right. And what I want you to watch, and this guy's got a great golf swing. I'm not sure if you followed him. He used to work a lot with Sean Foley. You know, like a lot of them, they kind of got rid of him a little bit. Moved on to other people with different ideas. But what I want you to notice is a couple of things, right? Number one is through impact, watch his belt and watch his belt buckle, right? So at the setup, it's sort of kind of that blue line's level with his belt line. But as he comes down, you know, as you start down, you push down into the ground, right? But then the ground's going to push back up, right? Whatever amount of force you deliver into the ground's going to deliver an equal amount of force back up into your body, up through your feet, up into your legs. So if you squat there, right, and you're doing it properly, then what should happen if your hips are moving forward, the hips should then start moving up. So you look how high his belt buckle is above that blue line there. Right, so his hips have essentially moved not only laterally but also upwards. Right, so his hips have moved forward and up. Now, as you're doing that, if anything, your head, you know, and this is the tendency with the good players. In a perfect world, we want. Let me just put a little circle around his head there to illustrate what I'm talking about. In a perfect world, we want to keep your head kind of in that circle, right? But what you tend to find especially with the driver, with the guys hitting driver, is as they're pushing down and the hips are going upwards some more, right? A lot of them have a tendency to just fall back with their head a little bit, right? A little bit. So if anything, we want the tendency going backwards with the head, right? Because that way then, through impact and post-impact, then you start to see the tilt going, whoops, let me get rid of that. Then you start to see the tilt in the spine going back this way, right? So when you're coming through, not only is your head moving a little bit close to the target, so it's moving towards the target too much, right? But also watch your hips. Through impact and post-impact, they're not lifting up. They're not lifting up, right? Your hips aren't going upwards enough, like you see, and I'll pull up another example in a second, like you see the pros, right? So because your hips aren't moving forward and upwards, right? So really thrusting them forward, you're therefore not getting much right tilt in your spine. So therefore you see that as you're coming through here, and if we go forward a bit more with him, right, even up to there, look at that right tilt that he's got, right? Whereas you're right, you've only just got a little bit here, right? So they're the two things, and the byproduct of that, the byproduct of you not lifting your, you know, moving your hip shift, you know, they call it thrusting your hips. You know, if you've read the Stack and Tilt book, they call it thrusting your hips. And, you know, I don't know whether they got that off Mac O'Grady or what, or tucking the hips, right? Thrusting your hips or tucking the hips. But your hips have to move forward and upwards, like you see Sean O'Hare there. And because you're not doing that, you then start to get this very kind of bendy look with your right leg, right? If we get rid of those lines, right? What you see in the good players is both legs in this position, you know, through impact and post impact, their legs are pretty straight, right? What we're seeing with yours is, even though you post up on your left one pretty well, here, this right leg is very bent, right? Right leg's very bent. Let's pull up another example. Maybe Jordan Spieth. Right, so straightening the right leg, flexing the left. As you start down, you sit into it. Right, you push down into the ground, you squat, you sit, whatever you want to call it. But then the ground's going to push you back up. So the legs then go from a bent position, sitting, squatting, into an extending position. Right, so look at that. Right, and again, let's put a line through his belt buckle. Right, so we'll put a line there. So sit, and you can see the belt goes below the line. Belt goes below the line as you start down, but then because the legs are then going to straighten up, watch how high his belt buckle goes now. Right, look at that, well above the line that he started on. Right, well above the line that he started on. And what this is going to do is it's gonna by you pushing your hips forward and upwards more, right? That's then going to create more right tilt in your spine. You can see here you've got very little right tilt in your spine through and post impact, right? And this right tilt in the spine is going to help you keep your arms extended more, which is going to keep your hands more passive, right? So you're going to so by focusing on your hips moving forward and up, you're going to get more right tilt, which is going to keep better structure in your arms. Right, if we zoom in here, right, it's going to keep better structure in you, and you can see how, you know, even down to here, look, we can still see his glove, we can still see the white in his glove, whereas your right hand has completely overtaken your left hand there, and we can't see your glove. Right, so don't forget, you know, I put a large bet that your miss is to the left, a curve to the left, right, a draw, an overdraw, and sometimes a hook, right? So we need to start building in new movement patterns to make your hands a bit more passive, and therefore the club face a little bit more passive. So that's the image you want there, right? But you're not going to be able to get your hands more passive here, meaning less right hand rotation, right, less kind of overtaking with the right hand, unless you've got the structure in your arms and elbows, and you're not going to get that unless you're getting more right tilt. Right, you can see here that you're nearly vertical, right? So from the down the line view through impact, your right leg is going to kind of look, yeah, so that, you know, I think you pointed that out in one of your emails, right? Look how bent this right leg looks, right? Whereas you look at let's pull Spieth up from this angle. There you go. So you see how it's kind of, you know, he straightened it by that point. That's the kind of look we want. So I would focus on those two things to start with. I'd focus on pushing your hips forward and up more, and then the byproduct of that will have in your more right tilt. Okay, you're going to be having more tilt this way through impact and post impact, and that's going to keep better structure with your arms, which in turn will keep your wrists a little bit more passive. Okay, mate, and then you'll start to, you know, this right leg will start to, on your videos, will start to look a little bit straighter. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Hope I explained that as well as I could. If you have any questions or anything else, just shoot me an email and I'll get back to you when I can. Cheers.